Does Loki actually have the Time Stone? For 22 movies and 10 years, the Infinity Stones were the most powerful objects in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether our heroes realized it or not. And while these magical multicolored Mancala beads have been destroyed, plucked from the time stream, and then returned to their proper place in history, Loki gave us our biggest bombshell revelation yet. Within the hallowed halls of the Time Variance Authority, Marvel's magical MacGuffins are nothing more than glorified paperweights.
Yeah, some of the guys use them as paperweights. Some of them.
It's something that Loki learned the hard way when he tried to use the Tesseract to escape the TVA back in episode 1. But what happens when you take those Infinity Stones outside of the TVA into other timelines? Well, that's exactly what fans are wondering after the events of Loki episode 3, Lamentis. One moment in particular has many fans speculating that the God of Mischief actually nicked one of the most powerful Infinity Stones, the Time Stone, and then used it to save the day during a key moment. Now, before we go any further, to talk about this theory in detail, we kinda need to spoil what happens in Loki episode 3. And if this theory proves correct, well, that could be a spoiler for the episodes ahead. So if you haven't seen it yet, or you're worried about that kind of thing, make like Loki and Sylvie and take the nearest time door on out of here. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? So the crux of this theory revolves around two key moments. One in episode 1 where Loki allegedly steals the Time Stone, and another in episode 3 where he allegedly uses the Time Stone. Personally, I don't really buy this theory, but I'm sworn to examine all the evidence at our disposal to see if the God of Mischief is up to some brand new tricks. Back in episode 1, we see Loki's world come to a screeching halt when he sees the preposterous amount of loose Infinity Stones just chillin' in Casey's desk drawer.
How do you have these?
During this scene, Loki picks up a time stone in disbelief, and we hear it clatter back down as he presumably drops it. But some fans are positing that much like he palmed the Tesseract to see if that would work, he took a time stone with him as well, either as a commemorative paperweight or maybe the world's densest stress ball. So the reason why people believe that Loki stole a time stone is thanks to a surprising display of power during the final moments of episode 3, during the mad dash to board the Ark in Sharu on Lamentis 1. As planetary debris rains down upon the town, rubble threatens to turn Loki and Sylvie into a fine red mist. But Loki says, "I've got it," then flexes his Asgardian muscles to repel the falling junk. Now, some are arguing that Loki uses the Time Stone in this moment to reverse the flow of time for that falling tower, and that's why the smoke recedes as well. And if you listen closely, you can hear sound effects that feel reminiscent yet a little bit different than the ones used for the Time Stone in Doctor Strange, and when Thanos uses the Time Stone in Avengers Infinity War. Although there are definitely mysterious sound effects to accompany Loki repelling this debris, which do give the impression of something flowing in reverse, there are no similar hand motions used by Doctor Strange or Thanos. While one can make the argument that Doctor Strange uses Eldritch magic and Loki uses Asgardian magic, which are different, the fact remains that Thanos creates similar Eldritch magic patterns when using the Time Stone with the Infinity Gauntlet in Infinity War, despite not being a spellcaster himself. That, to me, indicates those visual effects are associated with the Time Stone itself. So what Loki does here with his arms is actually similar to what he tries to do in Judge Renslayer's courtroom during the first episode when he tries and fails to use his magic powers inside the TVA.
Damn it, why would it work?
Given that Loki has access to his magic on Lamentis, my theory is that he's accessing one of his abilities that's rarely seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is telekinesis. The first time we saw Loki use his telekinesis was way back in Thor the Dark World in his prison cell, but more recently he used it in episode 2 of Loki during the Rocks Cart fight when he used it to grab a Roomba. So maybe in this moment Loki's instinctively using his telekinetic powers here as well. Others still think that Loki doesn't have the Time Stone and that he's not using telekinesis either. Rather, Sylvie actually did manage to enchant the God of Mischief, and she's creating this elaborate adventure in order to wheedle information out of him to use against him and or control him in her fight against the Time Variance Authority. And while I do think that Sylvie could weaponize Loki's candor against him later in the season, especially those details about his adoptive mother Frigga, invalidating an entire episode as a mere illusion, that feels like a tremendous cop-out, and frankly, I don't buy it.
It won't work.
Likewise, I don't think that Loki has the Time Stone, because if he did, couldn't he just use it to rewind time to the point where the Tempad wasn't completely broken, or the point before the Ark was completely obliterated by meteors and crumbling planet chunks? While the Time Stone doesn't work inside the TVA, we're actually not sure how it would interact in one of these potential branch timelines. As Mobius explains in episode 2, the TVA cannot time travel freely when they investigate a Nexus event. You can only access access it in real time rather than arrive before a Nexus event takes place.
Did you watch any of the training videos you were supposed to?
And although these apocalypses aren't considered Nexus events per se, Loki and Sylvie attempting to alter one of them to help the Ark escape or creating havoc in these timelines might actually trigger a Nexus event, and the power of the Tempad might be able to supersede the Time Stone in this instance. It's all a little bit unclear, but mostly I don't think it's the case because using an Infinity Stone as a get out of jail free card kind of feels like a letdown.
Oh, we actually got a lot of those.
We spent so many movies dealing with the Infinity Stones and how powerful they are. The fact that Loki goes out of their way in episode 1 to show they're not always the most powerful items in the universe was such an incredible signal to us as viewers that we are in a brand new era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And although we are jumping around in history, I don't think we're going to take a step back in time, narratively speaking, because that would be bad writing.
It won't work.
Regardless, we will find out one way or another in episode 4 when we learn exactly how Loki and Sylvie escape their apocalyptic predicament on Lamentis. If Loki pulls out a shiny green stone, then great, so be it. But honestly, we're far likelier to see something like Mobius riding through a time door in a sick-ass jet ski to save the day instead.
That'll be fun, though.
Yeah, it'd be really fun.
In the meantime though, folks, tell us, what do you think about this theory? How do you think Loki and Sylvie will ultimately escape Lamentis? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.